For me, time is so precious. And the older you get and the more people you see leave us, the more you realise how precious time is. And I don't want to waste a second. The lake we're going to talk about is in Reading. It's run by British record holder Dean Fletcher. I've got to know about the lake over the last few years. The usual, you see pictures on Instagram. I know it's got a history of producing some really big fish. Got in touch with Dean, got really lucky someone didn't join who was supposed to. Made the call at exactly the right time and arranged a walk round with him. I met him there one early spring Saturday morning, and straight away I just knew I was going to love it there, you know. We saw carp. It was beautiful. I'd seen aerial shots on Google Earth of the lake, and it was difficult to see where the lake and land started, and there were so many bays, islands, channels, loads of weed in the aerial shots as well. But it's like a Burghfield, a miniature Burghfield on steroids, if you like. Loads of islands, peninsulas. I don't know how many islands, but somewhere in the region, let's say 50, from big islands to dot islands, little back channels, bays. It had everything, some long range fishing, some real close intimate fishing. It had it all. From the get-go, I was really excited to wet a line. Now, unfortunately, my ticket didn't start until the June. So finally it's June. I got down first light, maybe 4 o'clock, something like that. Crept around the lake, everyone's tucked up. First thing I noticed is that everyone had a bait boat in their swim, and everyone was fishing in the main lordy swims that really commanded a lot of water, ideal for bait boat fishing long, out into little alcoves in islands and what have you. Now, as I made my way around the lake, there were loads of other really nice looking swims that really caught my imagination straight away, and they were all much more intimate fishing shorter, much more how I wanted to do it on my sort of terms. And so from the word go, it would really suit the approach of perhaps pop-ups, boilies, catapult range, that sort of thing, my sort of fishing. And it was very evident from what I saw those first couple of trips and the success I had that was definitely going to be the way of it. Now, as lovely as the fishing was that June, it was evident they'd spawned, and I really earmarked that lake from experience as the perfect early spring water, if you like, with it being really shallow, snaggy, often very clear. I just knew it would be the one, sort of February, March, April, that sort of thing. It's got, I know from speaking to some lads in the past that, you know, March and April are good on there, and I just knew probably a bit before that would also be good. Fast forward to the January. I got Christmas out of the way. I often don't fish much over Christmas. Tend to sort of block it out completely and focus my time on family time and what have you. By the time January came around, I was itching to get out, you know, as often most people are, you know. And it was sort of 17th, 18th of January. We just had a big freeze up, and we were now into double figure days. I knew the lake would be thawed out. Most of the lakes around here had thawed out. And I shot down there. I was down there for sort of a little after first light. On my journey there, I remember thinking that with it being midweek and probably the lake quiet, I know Dean lets you go out in the boat if there's no one about, or you know, there's one person one end, you can go up the other end and have a look in the boat. And I knew with that in mind, if we had the clarity, I could get out there and perhaps find them that way. As soon as I saw the lake, it was chocolate brown. There was an angler on the far bank. I just knew that was out of the question. And it was only 10 or 20 minutes later, in an area I really liked the look of from my time there in the summer. I found some localised bubbling over the area of about, I don't know, 2 vans I likened it to. Quite localised, often 2 or 3 patches of fizz at the same time. Now, that time of year, whenever you see any sort of subtle sign, I always doubt it, you know, do you know what I mean? Any other time of the year I'd be nailed on it was carp, but I just wasn't quite sure. Anyway, I went back to the van with a bit of a spring in my step, got the kit back to the swim, set up, tied up 2 naked choddies, ready to go out at the same time with minimal disturbance, little light leads. The idea being I'd put out a pouch or 2 of 12 millers over each rod, quick, quiet, and slacken off and see what occurred. Now, straight away the bubbling had stopped, which tells me it was carp, and I'd maybe moved them off a little bit. An hour or so later I had a big liner on my right hand rod, shortly followed by a ripping take, and couldn't believe it, like a 27-pound mirror sporting its winter cut. It looked wonderful on the bank, dark, real pucker, deep, scaly carp. And I was keen before, but now suddenly, like, it was like, you know, I was a dog with 2 dicks, you know. It was great. It was only January, the lake had only just thawed out, and there I was. I'd found some fish and caught one. First trip back. Redid the rod. I think I redid them both later that afternoon. Same thing, couple of pouchfuls of 12 millers over each rod. Softish drops out in this bay, bit of nothingness, you know, where I'd seen the bubbling the day before. And early that next morning, just before light, similar sort of thing, had a bite, looked out the rod with my head torch, bobbins up the top, tips round. You know, I remember this fish tried to do me down in the bottom of this bay. Bit of a drama to the fight, you know. Anyway, I bundled what was obviously a big common into the net, went and flicked the kettle on, took my time to sort of take it all in, looked at a couple of shots of what is the big common in the lake, known as Patch, on my phone. Sure enough, it was it. It was that one. It was like a real rare carp, probably not been caught in, I think it was the May previous, so 18 months odd or whatever, something like that. I think it's only done a handful of captures ever, but beautiful old carp, real long, and Joe came and done some shots for me. And yeah, like when we got her out the sack, like the colours just unbelievable, like mega old carp, and couldn't believe, like, you know, January and like this had happened. I was so keen at this point. Now, I did one trip the next week, and then it occurred to me that I'd earmarked that early spring, or before the spring if you like, to do. I needed to redo my bathroom downstairs, hall stairs and landing needed to be painted, recarpeted, some bits and pieces at home that if I didn't do now, me being me, I know wouldn't get done until the next year. So I had a dilemma, do I carry on, or do I throw myself into that and come back to the fishing in 3 or 4 weeks? And that's what I did the bits and pieces at home, got back to the lake. It was just like when I left it, you know, quiet, there was no one about. Found carp quite quickly, not in the area that I'd fished a few weeks before, but up the other end of the pit. Some subtle bubbling gave them away, and I caught a couple that trip. After moving them on a couple of times, I'd moved around. Now, going back a little way, it was quite evident that I would probably get about 2/3 of this lake pretty much to myself. It seemed that a lot of the swims in that 2/3 of the lake were really untrodden. They were on a public footpath, bridleway, so you got the dog walkers and runners and that sort of thing. And it seemed that the popular swims were over the other side where you bait boated out long, and that suited me just fine. It meant that during my trips, all I had to do is skip a couple of rods in and I could be on my toes looking for signs. One there straight away, look. Can you see that? On two-thirds of what I thought was the best 2 banks of the lake, and had them pretty much to myself. And generally speaking, even that time of year, doing a couple of laps or a couple of walks, you couldn't do a full lap. but a couple of long walks up and down, you'd find something somewhere, be that cruising carp when the clarity got a bit better, or bubbling. Now, Joe was going to come down and do some filming. I'd only met him once or twice. I'd never actually been out with him. He got down to the lake a little after first light. This particular trip was the first time that I'd ever seen someone on that 2/3 of the lake that I tended to fish. And I reckon he'd got wind of the result I'd had a few weeks ago, maybe not, whatever, but there was someone in that swim, which was a first. But that sort of forced my hand, if you like, to not start there and go elsewhere. Yeah, I had a bit of a niggling doubt last night I'd got it wrong, and I've seen nothing this morning, nothing that will make me stay anyway. And the thought of missing out on potential shows or bubblers up the other end, I can't sit here any longer. I'm going to skip these in and get down there while it's still nice and early, see if I can't see the tail end of some feeding or whatever. Yeah, it's all very all or nothing down here, and it's sort of feeling like nothing rather than all. So yeah, I'm going to crack on. Being as I'd never been out fishing with him and him filming and what have you, I think I was really conscious of the fact I was probably doing his head in a bit, because I couldn't stop walking around. I was desperate. I just knew that if I found a sign somewhere, that they were well catchable if you could get on them. Just couldn't find anything. Until I think we'd probably done half a dozen almost circuits of the lake, until I found what we were looking for, and that was like a real subtle bit of fizz, just a line of fizz, down the other end of the lake, the shallow end of the lake, right close to a couple of dot islands. Sorry mate, but we've got to bring our barrows back. That's spring fishing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's knowing exactly where you need to be isn't always obvious, but it is now. Yeah, yo. Get that, mate. I've dragged poor Joe around all morning, been like disappearing up my own arse, if I'm honest. Nothing really concrete to go on. Moved out of the swim up the other end, went back in there just for a look. Felt like I'd seen one, a little bit of movement under the surface. Then I did see a little bit of a flank up, but still wasn't real happy about it for whatever reason. I had an overriding feeling that I didn't fancy it in there. Just done a night in there for nothing. Thought, right, one more lap up the other end. If I don't see anything concrete up here, we'll settle in back down there. And we've come up here and sat down for 10 minutes, and sure enough, I've seen a big sheet up. Another one where one's just flanked across the bottom, and then he's lopped out. And all of a sudden, like, the buzz is on now. Do you know what I mean? It's like when I reeled in from that end, I snagged up on a big branch, had to go out in the boat and get that, and it was a bit of a performance, bit of a downer this morning, if I'm honest, with nothing really to go on when signs this time of year are absolutely everything, but with nothing to go on, it was a bit ugh. But now, like, it's got a real buzz. I'm going to get a couple of rods out real quietly and quick. Chance of a day bite on a day like this, right, quite overcast, and yeah, it feels pucker, so I'm going to crack on and get on and see if we can't nick one. Yeah. So I upped and moved from sort of the furthest most point, barrowed round. Got a couple of rods in position quite quickly, fishing for drops, sort of nothingness drops, in about 4 foot of water, something like that. I had two jod rigs tied up, cork ball pop-ups, got them out and into the rings, a few pouchfuls of 12 millers, quietly, and sat back and took it all in. Joe was sort of sat up the back of the bank, and he was actually down the bank at the time, filming some coots nesting. which looked, we both agreed looked really nice, you know. And I'd had a bite. One of the rods had gone, and with Joe being down the bank, there was a couple of anglers on the far bank, and I could have shouted down to him, but I was really conscious I don't like all that on the bank. Do you know what I mean? Nothing worse, is there? And so by the time I'd netted this carp, he just walked back into shot. His face was a picture. He couldn't believe it, well, neither could I. But
It's bigger than all. I was whistling you.
It was obviously a real big mirror, over 40 pound, one known as single scale. That was evident straight away. It's big single scale and two-tone to it. Composed ourselves, talking about how's your luck and all that sort of stuff. And anyway, we took her up into behind the swim is a bit of a folly way, if you like. Just the other side of that is a real carpy copse of trees, and we took her into there.
That'll do. Absolutely chuffed. From dooming and not being able to get on anything. Oh, incredible, mate.
For me, I really like those planar mirrors. Like everything seems to, or it certainly wasn't it? There was a big phase of like everyone wants to breed scaly fish, and they're the in vogue fish. But I've always liked sort of deep, plain, sort of leathery mirrors. Anyway, what a start! Absolutely fantastic, and yeah, couldn't believe it. First trip down with Joe and a 40 pounder. Another couple that trip, one through the night. I remember him it was a character, shall we say. It was like a real banana-y linear. I don't know if we filmed it, but the next few trips carried on that same way. It was I wouldn't rest until I found them. There was always a sign. It could have been anywhere. It was really typical that time of year, early spring. They weren't held up in any one area, and if they were, it was so shallow that you'd soon move them on. I was fishing wherever I found them, and quite often I'd set up several times during the trip, moving from one end of the lake to the other. It was around this time where I was having some real issues with pike spawn. I was finding them sheeting up, but then I'd get bitten off by a pike, and some of it was pike spawning, but there was definitely the carp were in there as well. And I caught I caught a real nice 31 pounder one night off of an area where the pike had been spawning. It was just whether or not I could keep rods in play without getting wiped out and a couple of times bitten off by them, which was a pain. What I would say is all this time from January through, missing a bit of February, but into March, certainly into April, I was watching the lake wake up. Nature was waking up. There were a couple of times at night you literally couldn't walk down the path without standing on mating frogs and toads and stuff. But just watching you know, the shrubs and the foliage and that come to life and green up and bud and what have you. It was, and the carp were waking up with it. It was, I was following it. I was there a lot. I was there 2 and 3 nights a week at least, and really immersed myself in it. I love that time of year. There's just something about it. You're watching it all wake up in front of you, and it's so transparent to see and feel. You couldn't look overhead without a buzzard or kite above you, like the songbird everywhere, and the most picturesque, beautiful lake. Really interesting, loads of nooks and crannies. You want to fish everywhere all at once, do you know what I mean? The thing with it was I'd be fishing an area and all the time be wanting to be somewhere else because it was so much going on. It was just a case of what signs do I fish for and what areas do I fish, what was the best chance at a bite. And obviously with it being so shallow, often a lot of the time you'd see your quarry, you'd see what you were fishing for.
We just sat here, or stood here should I say, for 5 minutes thinking how sort of dead it was, and I've seen a big sheet up close in. And again, look, see this? That's a bit more like it. I know it's very, very shallow here, so if we do come round here, I'll just come round with 2 rods, lower a couple in, handful of bait round each, and then disappear back round this bush so the old swan doesn't get wind of us. If you can do that, like you stand a couple of hours of fishing, you know what I mean? But until they stumble upon your bait on the bottom, but it's only like 3 feet deep, if that.
I didn't know much about the stock at the beginning, other than there was a couple of big mirrors. One was a younger sort of Dinton type strain, if you like, plain deep mirror, which had done weights of upper 40s, but was piling the weight on. I mean, that could have been massive, but that tended to get caught. It was quite a friendly one, good few captures a year, and a slightly lesser caught big mirror as well, sort of low 40s. Both of those fish hadn't been caught the previous year, and I'd yet to see signs of them this early spring, and I was starting to see all the other characters of the lake. Some fish I'd caught, some I'd not, but I was able to recognise them, and it was starting to dawn on me, perhaps were they there? There was definitely doubts. I know Dean Fletcher, who run it, had his doubts, and with me I can be quite cynical unless I see them or they get caught, especially if they used to get caught a lot. That was starting to weigh on my mind, and with there being a couple of other big mirrors in there that were definitely still there, 1 or 2 more of them, and that would do me, I think. I got to that stage where I felt, as we were getting into April, that 1 or 2 of those, that would do me. It was early enough in the spring for me to go elsewhere. As much as I loved the lake, rejoining it by this time I'd caught a lot of the big fish in there, some of the real nice sort of scalies and what have you.
Right, like first real warm days. We're like end of March now, and got down yesterday, and the clarity's gone amazing. I just see carp everywhere, so it's going to be a job to like not chase them, if you know what I mean. Try and settle down, and I've been swanned to death, and I've just got a feeling they're going to be really like sort of everywhere today, and I just don't want, conscious of not chasing them around too much. I'm already doing that. I want to maybe get a couple of traps set out of swan depth and just leave them, sit back and leave them, let it all go quiet, and sort of let them come on to me in a way. But that's the plan. We'll see how it unfolds. It's exciting anyway, really, really, really exciting. I've waited all sort of like early spring, late winter for this, and it's sort of game on now. So yeah, be nice to get eyes on one of them big mirrors. Right, we're like, this is everything you wait for, sort of all late winter, early spring, couple of 16-degree days back to back. Visibility's got much better. I saw carp yesterday afternoon when I got down cruising in areas I've not seen them in all year. Really exciting now, like they're up and about, and you know, they were quite visible. I've chased my tail a little bit today. I've not settled, more so because the swans have been an absolute nightmare. They're able to see my bait now. So hopefully I'm going to be able to get rods in this swim in maybe 6-8 inches deeper than what I have been fishing, and hopefully leave rods in situ for like a good few hours. But I'm really excited to see how the day pans out. Like this is everything we've been waiting for. It's like, yeah, it's lush. I'm like red hot now, sat here, sun on my back. Yeah, like spring is proper here, it seems. And I'm buzzing now. Like this is it. That's lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, I found a group down in the shallowest part of the lake, right down in the bottom of this bay. Not one to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm gonna get these rods in, take one rod down there and see if I can't lower in and not spook them. There's actually one coming through now as we speak actually, but yeah, they're like as exactly as we thought would happen today. They're up on top and bobbing about here, there and everywhere. It's looking good. Bet they ain't gone far. Big fish, but how cool was that? Yay! That'll do, won't it? Oh, love it. That's how you catch them, innit? It's fantastic. We was watching fish ghost over the rod. I almost thought like the chance had gone. And I watched the water erupt and at the same time the bobbin smashed the blank. And we've got ourselves a little, he's not a big fish, but a real scaly one. But, well, happy days. There you go. Not the biggest carp in the world, but a bonus bite, middle of the afternoon. A great way to catch them. Really good fun. Probably the smallest carp of the group. There's always a way, isn't it? Right, yeah, it was nice to catch one, but I think there's another chance yet. And to be fair, that was probably the smallest carp of the group. Like there was a couple of real big ones there, including a common I see yesterday, with a couple of white marks on the root of its tail and its right hand side, which I put at around 40 pounds. That was in here earlier, so I'm going to get this rod back in and we'll see. Feels like a better one. Hard to tell. Carnage. The old takeaways just turned up and rod's bust off and got a nice common. Looks like a mid-upper 20, but just as we're about to tuck into our dinner. But anyway, I can't complain because we've been after this bite all afternoon, haven't we? So right, we'll get her out. Have a look. Doing it, bit of carnage before we tuck into our dinner. Cool fish though. Right. Ain't a bad fish, mate. It's 30 pounder. Long mirror with a big single scale. Yes. Oh, mate. That's a better one. Yes. Happy days. Oh, knackered. 33.6. Yeah? Yeah. I do. Cool. It's tense. Good effort that. We caught them fish. That was good fun. I'll tell you what, we're all having a bit of banter here, a bit of jokes aside. I hope this feeling never leaves me, you know. Absolutely live for it. Wow, this evening's getting better and better, isn't it?
Anyway, fast forward into early April. One trip we had Jake and Joe were down and we'd fished like 2 or 3 swims in a day. By now the fish were really mobile, classic April time. They were one end of the lake, then the other, then they put it on a big display in the middle of the lake just as we had arrived in a swim. We saw several shows. One was a real big mirror, I remember that. Showed off the tip of an island several times. Back in the swim that I'd fished and caught the big common from in the January. Anyway, I got rods out, again, like chod rigs, catapulting boilies, just, you know, at a range of like, most of the the furthest I'd fish out was 40, 45 yards, real short stuff. Early hours of the morning, got a bite, and I got the fish in. I couldn't work out which one it was. It was obviously a real big crusty mirror with a real crusty old back to him. And went and woke Joe up. While I was waiting for him to hopefully come down and see me, I was having a quick coffee. He never did. He went back to sleep, didn't he? So I got the fish out and weighed her, sacked her up. Joe got to see her early the next morning once he'd woken up.
Right, quite a lot's happened the last 24 hours. But most importantly, I've got a real good one in the sack. 3910 mirror. One of the, I think it's one they call Mr. Pink. Quite a leathery one, long leathery one. Withered fins and whittled down old tail and whatnot. But the weather, we've had a real change in the weather. That's been the main difference. Like, it's quite low pressure, cloud cover, southwesterly wind. And I think the fish moved en masse yesterday from that end of the pit down this end. I had a couple of hours fishing in a day swim, right in the teeth of the wind down there. Wrote the area off, sort of. I didn't see anything in there, just went in there on a bit of a hunch, with the idea of coming in here for the night. I was moving the kit into the swim, and I'd seen one and heard one and watched a bit of fizzing, like more than I'd sort of seen really all year, like, you know. And really exciting getting rods out. Then just before dark, noticed some big sets of fizz over one of the rods. Had a nice takeaway last night with Joe, that was nice. And then, yeah, early hours of the morning, like an hour before light or whatever, middle rods pulled up tight, and sort of a classic sort of big fish, ploddy sort of bat. Didn't really do a lot. Quite obviously quite an old carp, like, you know, but yeah, real bit of excitement and buzz for the day. Like, you know, it looks really good. So yeah, we're going to get this one out shortly and show you. Really fucking cool, this carp. Better than it looked in the dark. Look at them fins, mate. Wrinkly old skin, and look at that head. Sunken eye. Excellent. How cool is that? Happy days, man. Proper old one. Gnarly old carp. Right, she's heavy. That sort of in my head, that sort of signalled the end for me. A real nice bit of fishing, just an incredible lake to fish. There's always something going on. I probably never fished a more picturesque lake than that, and yeah, I'd had some really fun times. I got really friendly with a few of the dog walkers. They'd one woman, at Easter, she bought me some tea cakes and that, you know, wrapped up in some foil, and I always had a bit of rapport with the dog walkers being on that public bank, which was always really nice. Yeah, now the whole dynamic of the lake was, it was all so transparent with it being so shallow. If you looked hard enough, like I go back to, like I said earlier, there's always something going on, and it made for it to be so intense. I never felt relaxed. I always felt like, you know, bizarre. If I acted upon things and fished well, like they would respond to that. They weren't the hardest fish to catch, so, you know, there was no sat there reading a book or flicking on social media. It was very intense. So a 2 or 3 nighter really wiped you out, you know what I mean? It was God knows how much walking I did, and just walking and looking. Yeah, really intense, but really
really fruitful. Like there was a couple. I'm going to go back a little bit now. There were times where I was plotted up in what I call that first swim I fished in the January and caught the big common patch from. There was a lot you could use 2 or 3 rods in there, whereas a lot of the swims on the lake, they were just one rodder, so you only needed one rod. Do you know what I mean? There was one little honey hole, if you like, where if they were there, you'd get a bite from them. Just magical it's very rare you can do that. You get those opportunities, or certainly find those opportunities and are able to act on them. But that was the beauty of this lake. It was so quiet, and you were just pure fishing. Just they behaved how they should behave, and if you fished for them, inevitably you'd catch them. You know what I mean? It was just, you'll see in some of the shots at some of the stuff I filmed, like the sights I saw there were just magical. Like you'd see them coming in like battleships, bobbing, and then as they neared your spot, like a rod length away, they'd get scent of, or they'd know that there was bait there or whatever. They'd drop, and just as they're out of sight, off they'd stop, ripping up. Sometimes you'd get a bite, sometimes I think they'd clean you out and you wouldn't get a bite, and you'd have to redo it and rebait, and then, but inevitably the bite would come when you thought it should, not just out of the blue. I always knew if I was going to get a bite and if I wasn't, and that was just, look, I was watching some of the clips back before you guys came to film, and it took me back there, and I it's just the purest, best type of fishing you could ever wish to have, and it's a type of fishing and a sort of the sort of lake that is becoming so thin on the ground now, that quiet, unmolested, well-run lake, old school values, old school rules, good other lads. Do you know what I mean? It's just take me back there in a heartbeat. I loved it.